Okay, so in talking about the fact that it's going to do a series about the whole Bernie Sanders thing, is mainly to get it off my chest. And although I've done these in subtle parts on other videos, I don't think anybody remember those videos in general. So I am going to try to speed through these. And there's a lot of blame game, and there's a lot of things that people need to understand as well. So I'm going to try to be very fair, and hopefully you understand, because I want people to have some understanding on why things happened the way they happened. Okay, so initially, Bernie Sanders run, and that was against Hillary Clinton, and that was him. Uh, yeah, had a turkey sandwich, um, and pickles. So, uh, Bernie Sanders, he had his run against Hillary Clinton, and I mean, he had to drop out and he supported Hillary. But during that time, the media didn't cover Bernie Sanders properly, fairly, or anything. The DNC, funded by the Clintons, they favored Hillary. She had name recognition, which is like 80% of any campaign. But they also had the money. And when you're beholden on to somebody that's, well, putting food on your table or keeping your way of life in check the way you want it, you're going to do what they say. So keep that in mind, all right? So ultimately, Bernie did have to drop out of the campaign, but he also had messages of doing things the right way. He said the things that Hillary Clinton wasn't saying. And when Hillary was exposed for being for the for-profit area and not for the people turned on Hillary. Whoa, gust of wind knocked stuff over. Okay, I have to go outside and look at damage later. So, stay down. I'm recording. Stay down. We'll look at it. We'll look at it. Um, I'm not gonna edit this out. So, this is real time. It's not sound effects or anything. If you could have heard that, no, this is storming outside, literally. So, what happened is ultimately Bernie Sanders could not deal with name recognition, could not deal with the funding, and at the same time, he, as I was trying to say, initiated a lot of things that Hillary wasn't saying. He was for the people, by the people, all of that stuff. He's also independent, and they used that. They did not talk about Bernie in a positive light. In fact, if they ever interviewed Bernie Sanders, they asked him about Hillary Clinton. If they talked to Bernie Sanders about anything about Bernie Sanders and his campaign, they made sure to show a lot of Hillary Clinton footage just above him or somewhere off. Large picture of Hillary or anything. Then they asked him about Hillary versus Trump. They made sure to even talk to Bernie on his campaign, but about everybody else. So it gave people that was watching mainstream media the impression that the discussion was this senator from Vermont weighing in on his thoughts of Hillary versus Trump. It gave that impression. So the media was exposed for controlling the narrative. Media's supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to just give you the information and you do with it what you wish. They're not supposed to dictate how things go. Now, let's fast forward. Oh, there's a lot involved with that. Yes, you've got the females, the feminists versus Bernie. It was back and forth, and in New York, it was all kinds of protest, anti-protest. It was nasty. The females were shouting, we're with her, and the Sanders supporters was like, not only are we for you females, but we are for everybody, equality, higher pay, and all kinds of positive things. It gave the discussion in the air. So for 4 years, after Hillary's loss, that's what started taking the airwaves. And that gave the ability for people like Andrew Yang to show up and be in the presidential debates and things like that. So, when it comes to 2019-2020 campaign, Bernie Sanders jumps back in. And he really wanted to have a good go. The conversations were in the air. Everybody was, quote unquote, talking about it, but not really going over how they're talking about it. But Sanders jumps in, and again, just like Sanders versus Hillary, when he finally jumped in at that fateful late September, October, it took forever for people of social media to get behind Bernie Sanders. When you endorse someone, you're telling your viewers, your fans, that this is the one to vote for, and we're going to give you the reasons why. Getting out the vote is just blanketed, but you need to get out the vote for who. So Bernie's still on the rise, per se, on the rise. Social media elites did not get behind Bernie Sanders until late. Again, they didn't do that. They were telling you the points of any and every candidate, which was good. They were trying to do journalism. I get that. I understand that. But you have Trump, who's the anti-journalist. You had Hillary that didn't care one way or the other. And now you have what ultimately everyone knew was going to boil down to was Bernie Sanders until Biden threw his hat in. Hillary couldn't be in this run. She couldn't. She had too much baggage. So the only ones that was left, that was, Warren, Bernie, that was it. Those were the ones that people were all about. So ultimately, Andrew Yang, he started throwing his UBI in there. And, universal basic income. He threw his hat in and he got that on the table before selling out to CNN and starting to slowly change certain things. It ain't gonna get no better, trust me. Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez threw her hat in to support Bernie Sanders late, but she did. And now she's changing, not so for certain things anymore. Andrew Yang, not for certain things anymore. Elizabeth Warren, not for, because she was right there neck and neck with Bernie Sanders on everything. They just had their different degrees of doing it. She started talking to who? Her friend Hillary Clinton. And then she started changing things and then lying on Bernie Sanders. And that got a lot of people to turn on Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders, for this 2020 election, you need to understand something. He's for so many things. Well, still, he's got his whole career supporting these things. He's been on the Senate floor. He has tried to do so many things, but people block him. You need support to get things done. You do. You just can't bull rush it by yourself. So that's why they use the rhetoric of what has he ever done. Because they know that anything he tried to do positive, that was blocked by not only Republicans, but Democrats. So once again, in the public eye, Bernie Sanders gets railroaded. He gets blacklisted. Now, ultimately, TYT and them, they did do their best. They showed up late, but they showed up. They were in the wins. Is it Warren? Is it Sanders? Which is it? Then it turned into, while Warren and Sanders is in with Joe Biden, it can't be Joe Biden. Then they started doing the one thing they shouldn't have done. They spoke heavily, nonstop, on the ills of Joe Biden. And I understand it's a sense to tell the truth and bury him. I get it. And that's something that was needed. But people don't remember all the bad things about Joe Biden. They ultimately remember Joe Biden. That's it. Well, what did he do? And that's literally an hour after the show might have aired. Well, what did Joe Biden do? I don't know, but they talk about Joe Biden a lot. So it's giving him positive looks, and that wasn't good for Bernie Sanders, because you stop talking about Bernie and start talking about how bad Joe is. People start focusing on Joe. That's not going to help. It's not going to help, and it didn't help. They TYT and the other elites stopped talking about Elizabeth Warren so much, and because of that, she stopped getting the positive look. She won't get it anyway because of the media, the mainstream media. And the mainstream media will twist anything against, positive people running for the Democratic nomination. They'll even twist stuff for Republicans that might want to do some positive things. I mean, anything positive, they're going to turn that. They're going to twist it. So you've got Sanders, you've got Warren, and that was it when it comes to the social media elites. And then Warren, she drops out. And now it's just Bernie and Joe. Well, Bernard and Joe. So, these lights are killing me. And it's early. I got stuff to do. So, you've got all this stuff going on, and you've got Joe Biden on mainstream media being called the front runner. He doesn't have to be. They just have to say he is. I mean, if you go out and you are having an argument with your neighbor or someone, and that person called the cops on you, you're wrong no matter what. They call the cops on you, you're wrong. That's how it works. That's society. It sucks. Whoever says it first wins. That's why people they fight so hard to be first. So that boils down to Joe Biden in every fault, every flaw. He's against, Social Security. He's against expanding Medicaid, Medicare, anything. He's against Medicare for all. He'll say that, it won't work. You can't get anyone to sign with it because he knows how to play the game. He knows the game in Washington. The Democrats are not going to sign off for something that's going to take money out of their pockets. He knows that. Bernie don't care about that. Biden played the game of money. He's got a severe record of being against entitlements, like your Medicare, Social Security, and things like that. Joe Biden he's been for wars. He's been against increasing the federal minimum wage. He's been against so much stuff, but people don't think about that. They just know that Joe Biden worked with Obama. They know that Joe Biden does not like the millennials, the Gen Xers. He don't like them. And people in his age group, in that roughly 60, 65 and up, they don't like the Gen Xers. They don't like, the millennials. They don't like anybody. It's all about jealousy. They don't like them. So just like Trump has a grand following because he hates the same minorities, you have, these Democrats that get behind Joe Biden because he hates the same type of people. Not in terms of minorities, but the age groups. Now, they'll cheer for Joe Biden because he hates the age groups, but then when Joe Biden says, yeah, you know what, I'm going to cut your Social Security, I'm going to cut your Medicare and stuff like that, they hear it, but they'll ignore it. They'll also just say, well, look, if he's going to do it, I'm sure it's for a good reason. At the same time, why should y'all, just get everything handed to you? We had to work for what we had to work for, to get, we had to fight for what we got. You all didn't, just like their parents told them, just to be honest with you. So Joe Biden had name recognition. That's number one. He worked with Obama. That's number two. And the older people, they like Joe because he worked with Obama. They like Joe because they remember his name. And, him using adult language on TV and whatnot, that also helped, So, and the older generation, they vote. They vote. So, they're going to vote 70 to 80%. Sometimes even up in the 90% of them will vote. They're going to vote. They remember how hard it was to go out and vote when they were younger. They exercise it. They know the power of it. So when they did vote in the Bible Belt and part of the Rust Belt, they voted for Joe Biden for those reasons. That was it. Name recognition, he worked with Obama, and he doesn't like the younger generations. That's it. They voted for that. They don't care what he's going to take away. That's what they voted for. Bernie Sanders, ultimately, he can't contend with that because the younger voters, a lot of Gen Xers, a lot of millennials, while there's a great portion that are like, you know what, Bernie Sanders, that's the way to go. We support you, Bernie. We love you. You know, we're on your side. All this other stuff. What happened is they rested on those laurels. That's it. They hear the positive talk and they just simply go with that. And Bernie Sanders, his fall was brutal, but it's something that I foresaw. I foresaw this as soon as he jumped in. You can go back and look at my videos talking about Bernie Sanders. I told you what was going to happen. I know that he should win. I know that if everyone did their part, he would have won without a problem. Joe would have dropped out probably back in December if everyone did their part. But they didn't. You see, not only did you have those things with Joe Biden backing him, but you got the mainstream media that supports Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, because they're going to make sure that the mainstream media keeps their money going. They're going to make sure that. You also have that these younger people, you know, some Gen Xers and mostly millennials, and all of these people that are just turned into that 18 to 22 range of age, they're not voting. They're not voting. Of all the young people, 18, I think it was 18 to 26, 14% of them voted. Just 14%. When it came to those that were in that 28 to 35, 36 range, whatnot, like 20% of them voted. Gen Xers, it was higher. It was in that 50% range. When it came to the older voters, this time they were up there in the 90%. They did their due diligence. They did what they were supposed to do. So when you hear about get out the vote, it is about get out to vote for who. But if you don't go out and vote for who, then your vote, that's when it's really thrown away. If you don't vote because you just don't like anybody, you don't understand, you don't like them, that's up to you. And I support that. I do. That's going to blow a lot of people's minds. But you don't want to vote for someone you don't like, that's fine. That's the way it should be. However, voting is a tournament. And that's how I judge who I'm going to vote for. Who's the best in that tournament? Who has the best ideas? Who's more on my side? And that's something that needs to shift for people to do better, because you need to find someone that supports you. You need to not find someone that you support. So you've got the media that's not going to cover Bernie. You've got mainstream media that, they just anti-Bernie, won't cover Bernie. You've got the social media elites that talk positively about Bernie, but won't tell you to go vote for Bernie. Everyone else will tell you who to vote for. But these elites, they didn't tell you to vote for Bernie. So you didn't know, because everybody wants to be told what to do. So that's why sometimes you got to tell them what to do. You got to tell them, vote for Bernie. You must. And most important, the one thing that also cost Bernie, one thing that helped him fall flat, nobody that listens to the social media elites about Bernie. They listen to the social media elites. They listen. They nod. They're okay. They're happy. They're like, I feel good. I feel pumped. It's Bernie Sanders all the way. But that's where it ended. You have to talk. Spread the word. Word of mouth. Basically cut and paste. Hey, listen. Check this out. Listen to what they had to say about what's going on. Talk to your parents. Talk to your uncles. Talk to your aunts. Talk to your grandparents, your great-grandparents if you have them. You know, talk to the older generation and say, hey, you got to listen to Bernie Sanders. He's really for what everybody wants. Listen to what Joe Biden. Listen to these clips. Joe Biden is against this. Joe Biden is against that. And play it for them. And then they might say, well, what year was that? He's probably changed. No. You can look at him and tell people don't change. You can say that to them. People don't change. You can always change your vote because what Joe Biden wants is not what you want. So you can change your vote without changing your mind. It's a big difference. Not changing who you are. Voting for a certain person should not be a reflection on who you are. It should not be. It should just be who was the best one to vote for at the time. And that is also what came down to this. As Bernie Sanders fell, and nobody wanted to look in the mirror, and nobody wanted to spread the word, Joe Biden said nothing, did nothing, and he rose. And that's just it. The very thing that helped Bernie Sanders fail is the very thing Joe Biden used to rise. You say nothing, you do nothing, you let people make up their mind. And for Bernie Sanders, you say nothing, you do nothing, and people's minds were made up for them. If anything, everything that Bernie Sanders went through, with everything hating him, Republicans, Democrats, the baby boomers, all of that against him, the true nail in his campaign's coffin was that all of his supporters stayed isolated without trying to spread or convince others. That is what did it. And them also not going out in droves and voting in favor of Bernie Sanders. That's what did it. So I hope it's a lesson, because I can't foresee another Bernie Sanders in the next 4 years. Well, 5 really. I can't see it. And that's what I said in the beginning. You need another. If you place everything in the basket of Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders is your hope, he's your movement, when he's done, you're done. You need to be the movement, not Bernie Sanders. I called this happening, and it happened exactly as it did. That don't make me a genius, and I don't like being right. I really don't. Because when I'm right, that means things are that bad, and they are that bad. And at the same time, it's not over. It's not over. Bernie Sanders gave us a lot of tools. He gave us a lot of rhetoric. He gave us a lot to think about. But the most important thing that he didn't give us was telling us to spread the message and do right. That's the one thing Bernie did not do with his grassroots campaign. Grassroots is the way to go. But grassroots also have seeds, and those seeds need to spread. They need to grow. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen, and that's why things happened the way they did. But let's learn from it, right? Let's be better. All right, I'll do part 2 probably tomorrow or later on today, but if you got comments, you got thoughts, put them down there below, please. You know I'm listening. It must be Benjamin Dixon tweeting his ass off. Anyway, it's been Cedric Kennedy for Comparative Reasoning. Thank you for listening.